Hello, welcome to the Aberystwyth Business School Level 3 Business Lecture Series. Today we're going to look at place. I'm Dr. Julie Abbott and I'm going to take you through one of McCarthy's 4 Ps, and today it's place. So we're going to look at what place is and look at channels and different channel types and intermediaries, how they work within the different marketing channels that we have. We're going to look at structures of channels and the characteristics that again they have. And then we're going to join the channels together, if you like, and look at the elements for the whole of the supply chain. And then finally we're going to look at one end of that supply chain, which are the retailers. But first of all, we need to look at what a definition of place is. And the Chartered Institute of Marketing has one here, which is that place is the place where customers buy a product, the means of distributing your product to that place, which must be appropriate and convenient for the customer. So that really encompasses everything that we'll look at. That in the old days, if you like, place was just the physical place. It was the bricks and mortar. And today we now have a mix of digital and physical channels to market, and it's become a lot more complex overall. So therefore, when we're thinking of place and the channels to market, we look at our physical outlet itself. We still have a lot of those around in the shops and stores, but we're also moving more and more to digital these days. So we have our digital channels to market, and we often use the term bricks and clicks, and that's where we use the physical bricks and digital as in the clicks. We also have a number of intermediaries within our channels, our place, and they can be agents, distributors, wholesalers and so on. And that can be a single intermediary along the distribution chain, or it can be a number of those. Overall, we talk about our supply chain or distribution chain, and that goes basically from the primary producer of raw materials all the way through to the customer. So that can be quite long and complex, or it can be quite short and simple, dependent on the type of products offered. And then we have any other channels that we have to market. So anything that's a method of getting our goods, services and experiences these days to our customers are thought of as place within McCarthy's 4 Ps. So ultimately it's any customer interface as well as anything down that supply chain. And of course, when we're looking at supply chains, all the way along that supply chain, we will have producers and customers, or suppliers and customers all the way down. So it is actually customer interfaces. Now, what we're going to talk about actually is content that we will test within our Aberystwyth University entrance exam. So if anybody's interested in coming along and studying at Aberystwyth, particularly within the business school, you can complete your entrance exam, and if you have a look at more details here, that talks to you more about scholarships and what awards you can get for sitting an entrance exam. So let's start looking at channels, and we look at the why we have channels. And a lot of the reasons we have channels is because it reduces uncertainty. It takes away complexity, and this is an example you can see here on this slide. Whereas we have a manufacturing company that has 3 places, if you like, three production sites, and they want to go to the customer. If they go direct to the customer to get to 3 lots of customers, there's actually 9 types of touch points, if you like, customer touch points. And that means that it's quite complex to get to those customer sets. If, however, we put a distributor in the centre, or a retailer or wholesaler or whatever it might be, then that reduces that complexity, because each of the manufacturing points are going to one distributor, and those then go out to the customer from there. So we have a sort of a hub and spoke system going on, and that reduces complexity. And if we take away complexity, we're often taking away cost, and so we're improving our efficiency within our operations, and also our effectiveness at getting out to our marketplace. And within business, we have to be both efficient and effective in order to be successful. They also reduce uncertainty by increasing the competitive advantage that we have. Anything that we do in business, we try to reduce risk and mitigate risk, and channels certainly help to do that. So they take away the uncertainty that the customers might not want your offering. So that could be by a specialised dealership, or it could be through a supermarket, for example, where people are going out, and because it's there on the shelves of a trusted supermarket, then the customers will be happy to buy. So the value of your product becomes increased, and the competitive advantage you have is increased because you're there within the offerings of a trusted intermediary. We also can improve efficiency again by transaction by making them more routine, and we can do that by automating different areas within the whole supply chain, and that can be for orders and it can be deliveries. So that's a good way that channels reduce uncertainty as well, because it means that you can forecast better and businesses know what they're expecting to come in and how they can increase their cash flow or keep their cash flow as it's expected to be. We also have specialised intermediaries that produce and offer services that wrap around your product. So it can be service, after-sales service, maintenance, the actual installation of a product, and so on and so forth. And again, finance. Particularly if you look at when you're purchasing a car, for example, you often want finance to buy the car, you need it servicing, and so on and so forth. And this is where the channels can really help. But there are lots of different types of intermediaries that we use, and agents and brokers are one type. Brokers we think of in often in the insurance type industry, where there'll be and you would go as a customer to an insurance broker and they then could choose the best deal for you. We also have agents who are often used as a way for companies to make the first step into international business, and we use overseas agents to help make that happen and make the transition easier. We have distributors and dealers, and often we see that in the car industry, the automotive industry, where you'd have a dealer that would specialise in one or two types of automobile, and they would understand that offering very in great deal of depth, and so give the best offering to the customer. Franchises are interesting. I mean, they are businesses that are run almost autonomously, but not quite. And people buy into a franchise. And so McDonald's, KFC, these are the sorts of franchises that we see all the time. And the franchisor, who is the ultimately the producer, uses a franchise as an intermediary to get to the marketplace. And it's a way that they can grow their business very quickly, and the franchisees buy into that business and run those businesses almost as their own business, but they have a great deal of help and support from the franchisor, who will want to keep the businesses looking the same. So if you look at McDonald's, wherever you might go in the country or overseas, and you go to McDonald's, you know what you're getting. And that's the brand promise of McDonald's and the ultimate franchisor. But it's the franchisees out in the different places that actually deliver that brand promise to the customer. Wholesalers are an intermediary that goes between producers and retailers, because it helps them to sell to a more specific market, and the retailers would go out and buy from the wholesalers. And we see this a lot in small family type stores or small chains of stores would use a wholesaler. Large supermarkets, for example, would go direct to the producer to get their offerings to market, their products to market. And finally, we have retailers themselves, and these are the intermediaries that go between the producers and the customer. And we all know about retailers. We all go into department stores and supermarkets, and so on and so forth, and fashion chains and brands. So there are the different types of intermediaries, and they sit in different types of channel structures, and they can be either very simple and direct channels when it's just the producer and the consumer, and often this is for agricultural type products or very simple products. So it can be craft producers going out in marketplaces or small stores where they actually sell, they produce the goods and they sit there on the marketplace themselves and sell directly to the consumer. And we see that a lot with farmers markets and so on, and any marketplace. So if you live in a small town, go and have a look at the markets and you'll see that it's often the producer selling direct to yourselves. We have indirect, where we go through intermediaries, and this is the channel structure that we sort of know more intimately, if you like, because we go and buy from intermediaries all the time. And finally, we have multi-channel, where we have the channel you can sell direct to the consumer, or you go through an intermediary. So often we look at the travel market for that, and airlines can sell either through an intermediary, through a travel agent or an online travel agent or physical travel agent, or directly to the consumer. So they're the basic sorts of channel structures that we have. Now, when we're looking at supply chains, this is a little more different, because if you think about a car producer, a car assembly, Ford or Vauxhall or whoever it might be, they will buy in or buy in parts, and those parts might be from other factories of their own, such as engines and so on, or they might be from other suppliers, so for brake pads or tyres or whatever it might be. And then those suppliers themselves would have suppliers, and they would have suppliers, and all the way back to raw materials for the rubber plantations and the iron ore and so on and so forth. And forward from those car assemblies would be the distributors and dealers, and then out to the consumers themselves. So a supply chain can be quite complex if you've got a very complex product, or it can be quite simple if you've got simple products. So let's say you're selling carrots into a supermarket, you would probably just have the producer selling to Tesco or Sainsbury's, and they would then sell out to the consumer. So that's quite a short supply chain, whereas something like a car would be quite a long supply chain. But ultimately what we're looking at is the value creation that is attributed to all the activities that go on with the distribution of the product and the products through that supply chain, and how those products change from the raw materials to the finished product that's distributed to the customer. And this is the physical side of things, not necessarily the marketing side. So what we're trying to do in the supply chain is get the movement of this product set through the supply chain with in the most efficient and effective means possible. Because again, as I said earlier, businesses have to be efficient and effective in order to really be successful within the marketplace, especially in today's marketplaces where they're very, very competitive and highly changeable. So one of the things that we look at a lot in supply chains is keeping the costs down. Okay, we really need to keep the cost down as much as possible, because the supply chain adds to the ultimate price of the product, and the higher the cost within the supply chain, the higher the price out to the market, and therefore the less competitive you might be against your competitors. So if we look at the supply chain activities and the goals of a supply chain, ultimately what we're looking to do is have a supply chain that's absolutely integrated and efficient all the way through, however long and however complex. So the activities that we're looking at are product fulfillment. We're looking at transportation of those products. In order to deliver product and make product, we have stock, and we have to manage that stock all the way through, because we don't want to carry too much stock, but we don't want to have so little that we can't actually fulfill the product. And finally, we want to have warehousing. Now, warehousing can be parts of stock or it can be finished goods. So those are the activities, but the goals are slightly different, because the goals are that during the fulfillment particularly, we're trying to reduce our waste. We really want to have as little waste as possible. First of all, for cost reduction, but also because we don't want to have that waste going out there these days. We need to try and make the supply chain as short as possible as far as time is concerned. We want to try and compress the time down as much as possible so that we can be very, very efficient in the way that our supply chain goes through. We have to be flexible because things can go wrong, things can change all the way through the supply chain. So we have to be able to respond to our suppliers and our customers as quickly and efficiently as possible. And ultimately, we're trying to keep our product costs down as well. So cost reduction is very important. So on to retailing. And this is the end of the distribution chain, supply chain, if you like. And it's the sale of products and services to you and I, the consumers, and it's for personal use typically. And we deliver value. That's what marketing's all about, is delivering value. And when we're looking at retailing, we see that the value that we deliver ultimately is convenience, because it makes it easy for us to access the products we want. Retailing also helps it make it easy for us to search for the products we want, helps us to buy and own the products, and it helps us make it easy for us to pay. So retailing can be physical stores, or it can be digital channels, digital stores such as Amazon, and we can pay physically with real money, or we can pay digitally as well these days. So there are lots of options for us within retailing, but ultimately it's out at the consumer level. So if we're looking at physical retailers here, not the digital retailers, we can see we have lots of different types of retailers. We have those that have a broad range of products, and that's the breadth of the product range, and also a deep number of product lines within each range. Or we have department stores with their broad range and deep lines, and therefore when you've got a lot of offerings, it's really important that you present well to your customer set. If you're going into a discount shop, they'll have lots and lots of lines there, broad range, but within that range, they will have very few products within that range, and you won't have a lot of options because it's about keeping the costs down. We have limited lines where we have a few, a narrow set of products, but actually within that product set, we have a deep number of products. We have a lot of different products. So if we look at cycle shops, you go in and you only have cycles, bicycles, but you have a lot of choice within the number of bicycles. Category killers are those where we have going for a particular category of product, but would have a lot of offerings within that category and the prices are kept down. So it's usually a big supermarket type for a particular product. So like B&Q for DIY, for example. Supermarkets, the customer service is low because you're actually serving yourself pretty much, but there's a broad range of products and lots of products within each range. And then we have our convenience stores, where the prices are higher because they are convenient. They're open when other shops are not. So you don't get the range because they're trying to just put in the products that are convenient, and there's not a great deal of choice either. And the prices are quite high, but you pay for that because you want that convenience. So in summary, today we've just had a look at what place is, one of the 4 Ps, and within that the different channel types. We've looked at intermediaries and their roles, the different structures of channels and the characteristics within them. And then we've looked at supply chains and the role and function of retailers. Thank you very much for your time. I really hope it's been useful for you.